Picture this. It's 1815. Napoleon rides through Paris not as a defeated exile, but as master of Europe. The streets roar with celebration. France has crushed Waterloo. Britain stares across the Channel, shaken, and Russia waits uneasily over the horizon. But behind this moment is a choice he made years earlier, not invading Russia. That's the secret twist that makes this empire possible. The story begins not on the battlefield, but in that decision. And now, everything changes. The pivotal moment arrives in 1812 when Napoleon, with uncharacteristic restraint, abandons his plan to invade Russia, preserving the full might of his Grande Armée. With 450,000 seasoned troops, infantry, cavalry, and artillery intact, he redirects this formidable force toward a sweeping conquest of Europe, turning a potential disaster into a triumph of ambition. The campaign ignites in 1813 at the Battle of Leipzig, a sprawling clash known as the Battle of Nations. Here, Napoleon outmaneuvers a desperate Prussian-Austrian coalition of 300,000 men. His corps system, dividing the army into self-sufficient units, allows rapid redeployment, encircling the enemy with precision. Massed artillery, bolstered by captured Prussian cannons, unleashes a relentless barrage, shattering their lines over 3 days of smoke and chaos, leaving 80,000 dead and securing Central Europe. By 1814, his gaze shifts to Waterloo, where he faces Wellington and Blucher. His cavalry, led by Marshal Ney, charges through muddy fields, breaking the British center with thunderous hooves, while infantry outflank the Prussians, turning the tide in a single decisive afternoon. The victory cements French dominance, with captured British standards paraded through Paris. The conquest continues into 1815, when Spain becomes his next target. French columns march through the Pyrenees, overcoming rugged terrain with engineering feats, temporary bridges, and siege ladders, while quelling guerrilla resistance. Towns like Zaragoza fall after weeks of bombardment, their defenders overwhelmed by 60,000 troops and fortified outposts that dot the landscape. Italy succumbs as well, with Milan and Venice seized after coordinated assaults, their canals turned into defensive moats by French sappers. The Rhineland, already a French sphere, is reinforced with garrisons, its castles repurposed as command centers. This conquest thrives on Napoleon's strategic mastery. Rapid marches keep enemies off balance, while his engineers fortify captured cities with star-shaped forts, bristling with cannons. The continental system, once a faltering economic blockade, evolves into a weapon of war. He pressures neutral states like Denmark and Sweden into alliances, using naval threats and economic sanctions, their ports blockaded by French frigates. Diplomacy with Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, his silver-tongued envoy, secures Austrian neutrality, calming Vienna with promises of Balkan gains, while the Duchy of Warsaw, swelled with 50,000 Polish volunteers, becomes a launchpad for eastern advances, its cavalry harassing Russian borders. Britain's Royal Navy remains a formidable barrier, its blockades choking French ports with ironclad discipline. But on land, Napoleon's empire stretches from the Atlantic to the Vistula, each victory sealed with French governors, loyal garrisons, and the tricolor flag flying high by 1815. By 1815, Napoleon's reign transforms Europe into a vast French empire, its pulsating heart in Paris, radiating power across continents. The Confederation of the Rhine emerges as a militarized bastion, its patchwork of German states reduced to figureheads under French garrisons. These troops, numbering 100,000, enforce conscription and tax collection with iron discipline, their drums echoing through cobblestone streets as they requisition grain and men. Italy's puppet kingdoms, stretching from Naples to Venice, adopt the Code Napoleon, a legal masterpiece that standardizes property rights, trade regulations, and civil law, while Spanish nobles, subdued after the invasion, integrate their economy into the imperial web, shipping gold from Seville and grain from Castile northward. The code sparks a boom in French industries. Lion silk looms hum day and night, producing fabrics for imperial courts, while Alsace's steel furnaces glow, forging cannons and rails. Paris funds a network of roads and canals, their construction overseen by 20,000 engineers, binding the empire with stone bridges over the Rhine and lock systems through the Alps. Culturally, French becomes the language of power, with schools across the empire drilling Napoleonic ideals into children, replacing local dialects, German, Italian, Spanish, with Parisian accents. Teachers trained in Paris recite tales of Austerlitz and Waterloo, while textbooks erase regional histories, forging a unified identity. Gladiatorial arenas rise in Rome and Madrid, reviving ancient spectacles with French soldiers as champions, their battles staged with roaring crowds and imperial banners, a propaganda triumph that dazzles subjects into submission. The army, now 600,000 strong, patrols from the Iberian coast to Polish forests, its drummers signaling martial law, silencing dissenters with public executions in town squares, their heads displayed as warnings. Britain, isolated by sea, funds secret resistance networks, smugglers in Lisbon, spies in Hamburg, but its naval raids falter against French coastal batteries, 50-gun forts guarding every major port. Napoleon's reign peaks in 1820, a golden era where neoclassical palaces rise along the Seine, state academies pioneer steam engines and balloon reconnaissance, and his portrait adorns every town hall, uniting Europe under a single, unyielding vision of French supremacy. Napoleon's sudden death in 1821 at age 51, struck down by a rumored stroke amid a campaign review in Lyon, leaves his 11-year-old son, Napoleon II, as emperor, casting a long shadow over the empire. Built on his father's charisma, battlefield aura, and personal decrees, the realm now hinges on a regency council, Marie-Louise of Austria, the cunning Talleyrand, and grizzled marshals like Davout and Ney, struggling to fill the void left by a titan. The army, once a monolith of loyalty with 600,000 men, fractures as marshals vie for command, their rivalries spilling into barracks, where veterans mutter of a lost golden age, their loyalty to the name Napoleon tested by a child. Spanish guerrillas, emboldened by rumors of weakness, launch bolder raids, ambushing supply lines near Granada, while Italian cities like Florence whisper of independence, their poets penning seditious verses in hidden cellars distributed by night. Externally, Britain seizes the opportunity, launching daring naval raids along the Channel, sinking French frigates off Brest with cannon fire, and landing agents in Normandy to spark uprisings among disaffected farmers. Russia tests the Polish frontier, its Cossacks clashing with Warsaw's defenders in skirmishes along the Bug River, probing for cracks in the French line. Austria, ever the schemer, courts German princes with promises of autonomy, hosting secret meetings in Vienna where Rhineland nobles pledge support, sowing dissent in the empire's heart. The Regency responds with a 500,000-strong army, its ranks swelled by conscripts from conquered lands, Poles, Italians, Spaniards, drilled in French tactics, and a bureaucracy enforcing the Code Napoleon with ruthless efficiency, its tax collectors scouring villages for every franc. Napoleon II, tutored in strategy by Davout and inspired by his father's legacy, matures by 1831 into a resolute leader, rallying troops with speeches that echo across Paris, his voice carried by courier to distant garrisons. For over a decade, the empire endures, its forts, star-shaped bastions from Lisbon to Krakow, holding against British blockades, their cannons firing nightly salvos, and its roads sustaining supply lines with mule trains braving mountain passes. The treasury, bolstered by Spanish gold, funds counterattacks, dispatching 30,000 men to repel Russian incursions. Yet, German nationalists plot in shadowed taverns, their pamphlets smuggled past French censors. Britain's economic stranglehold tightens with trade embargoes on French wine, and Spain's unrest festers with peasant revolts in Andalusia. The throne stands, but its stability teeters on Napoleon II's ability to wield his father's conquests, leaving Europe a volatile stage of French grandeur and defiant undercurrents, its fate hanging in the balance. Napoleon didn't fail because Europe was unbeatable. He failed because he made two choices that pulled apart his own system: the blockade that drained his economy and the invasion of Russia that shattered his army. Without those, the coalitions look weaker and the empire looks possible. So here's the question. If he had survived longer with an intact Europe under his rule, would the 19th century have been remembered as a French age instead of a British one? From one decision in 1812, an entire century of politics, industry, and colonial expansion could have unfolded in a completely different way.